Oh, it
Are
did the
those
vote.
balloons? Yes, I like that. Is that a
Okay.
new feature? What is that?
I don't know why I did that. I thought I only did it
Uh,
on my phone.
oh, that's classy. Okay, anyway. Well, hey, Bree Bree.
Hey, Sandy.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Good is not a good is not a feeling.
Lord, be a fence around me. Um. Okay.
Every day.
I feel. Do you have a wheel or something?
Not in front of me, but
Oh, okay.
I mean, I can go
Okay. Well,
grab one if you need me to.
I feel. I feel fabulous. Is that is,
Okay,
is that a feeling?
that's perfect. I love it.
How do you feel?
I feel happy. I
Good.
feel happy.
I'm glad to hear that.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Okay, you gonna do the theme song?
Mm. Uh. Uh. Yeah. Uh. What? Yeah. What? Welcome back. The girl, she did
Uh-huh,
that.
uh-huh.
Welcome back. Yeah, yeah.
All right, you did that.
Hmm.
Okay, what we drinking today?
Well, I'm drinking some tequila.
Not
It's like a tequila. It's
tequila.
like, yeah, it's like a lemon drop.
Okay,
Hmm.
you to
It's
mix
pretty
this up
tasty.
together on your own?
You know I did.
Oh my lord.
And
Okay,
you know it. What you
all right.
sipping on?
Well, I have little concoction I done made with some pineapple juice with Hennessy.
Hennessy.
Yeah, what's wrong with Hennessy? I like Hennessy, but it's good. All right, so what we getting into today?
So we're going to start with the girl. She did that. Spotlight.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And who are we putting on the spotlight today, Sandy?
We are gonna honor today Regina King. In the last couple of years, she's been through a lot with the death of her son. And I was watching her interview several months ago, and she talked about, her grief and loss of her son. And she said, I understand that grief is love that has no place to go. And that resonated with me because when you think about grief, your love for that person doesn't go away. It stays, right? It's just you no longer get to express that love to them in the physical. So I appreciate her being a template of talking about grief and loss because a lot of people don't want to talk about that type of stuff because it makes them sad, right? But I
Hmm.
hope that in our conversation today that people can find some laughter in grief and loss. So, yes.
Yes.
So, Regina King, you are a girl that did that.
Yes, girl. And we are going to
Hmm.
continue to have you in our prayers as you continue this journey, you know, without your son.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So, what we getting into today?
So today we are going to talk about grief and how that has impacted our lives, what that looks like for us personally,
Mm-hmm.
um, how to cope with grief.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're going to talk about today is grief and loss and, how to cope with it and some of the things that people go through that people don't really think about um, when it comes to grief. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
start.
Okay.
What does grief look like for you?
For little old me?
Yes.
No. Um, man. So, what does it look like for me? I think I have times and days depending on who the individual is and depending on the circumstances of their like death. Like if I'm like, okay, like, I know this is a part of life. I know that, at some point we're all going to reach this stage where we all have to go through this process. I find death very, very interesting because it's the only experience in life that nobody, you could talk to anybody about it. Like you
Mhm.
can be like, "Oh, girl, how did you die? What happened? Tell me what happened. Oh, girl, what is it like on the other side?" Oh, like you can't ask those type of questions. And like I be wanting to know, like, girl, who you
Mhm.
see over there? You know, like, I mean, you have all these books and articles about what it may look like or feel like, but like you don't know, right? And so for me, depending on the person and the circumstances of death, I feel like I grieve very well. I feel like I have my days of like sadness around like birthdays or like major milestones in my life. I know that my wedding was something that it was hard for me to truly experience or feel
Mhm.
happy on that day because it was so many significant people that was not physically present,
Mhm.
and I struggled with that. I struggled with the planning of my wedding because the person that was supposed to be there to help me plan
Mhm.
passed away, unexpectedly. So that particular death I took very, very hard. And I still have my moments, but I feel like I respect their decision of just getting on up out of here and not telling nobody, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
So I don't know. How do you handle it?
Well, before we move on to me,
Oh, excuse me. Okay.
would you like to tell the people what you like to do in your free time when you're looking at what is it, Costco, Sam's, you know,
Brian.
pertaining to funeral?
So okay.
Tell the
I
people.
like I like to look at obituaries.
Correct.
So my
And you
grand
like to
what?
look and see how much caskets are.
Okay, yes.
If there's
I
a
do.
sale or something.
Okay, so
I've always said that you were supposed to be a funeral director. I'm just like,
and the crazy thing is I am scared of funeral homes. That's the craziest thing, right? Okay, so my grandma Dosha, R.I.P. grandma. So she and I, when I was a teenager, would look at the obituaries every single day. So she would even save the newspaper for when I came over, so we could compare and contrast who had what and what obituary, how long it was. It was the whole thing. But that was like a little thing that she and I did. Why we did that, I don't know. But she was also fascinated. She was fascinated with death too.
mm-hmm,
And when she passed away, that was the only time I experienced like physical death, like being in the room when she took her last breath. Like,
mm-hmm,
some people thought that was kind of, strange. They didn't want to be there. But I thought it was such a beautiful experience because I was there to help usher her onto the other side, pray
mm-hmm,
with her, sing with her. And I will never ever forget. And I feel like I had a lot of closure in her death because we
mm-hmm,
both knew what was going to happen, because she had been sick so long. Yes, and also I do look up how much caskets cost because funerals are expensive. Like it's expensive to die. So you can go to like Walmart, Sam's Club got caskets. Like you don't have to buy a
get
casket
some more
from
to
the
drink.
funeral. What? Yes, in my spare time I do look at how much caskets cost.
Okay,
But
that's all.
also but also I teach a death and dying course. So let's okay, so this is all for educational purposes. Now, prior to me teaching the death and dying course, I was looking this stuff up.
Exactly. Prior to. Okay. As long as we're on the same boat.
Yes, okay. Prior to, yes, I was looking at that stuff. But now I have reasons to, because I teach an actual course in death and dying and the customs and all that. So I have reasons to look into these things now,
Mm-hmm.
not just
Mm-hmm.
because I'm strange. Uh, Whatever, Bianca.
Everybody has their things.
Huh.
Anywho, what grief looks like to me, I think that it just looks like many things. Like I think it just depends on how the person leaves the earth,
Mhm, mhm.
kind of dictates how you grieve. But I think that like with grief, whether you know it or not, it still is a shock
Sure.
to me. It's just different when you know versus when
Mhm,
you don't know, right?
mhm.
Like
Mm.
a shock when you don't know is like the obvious, like clearly, like it was unexpected and like had no clue what was going on. But I feel like people think that because you know that you skip the step of being shocked.
Right.
Like it's still not real until it happens and you're just like, I really can't talk to this person anymore. Like this is it. This is like the most permanent thing that you'll ever experience
Mhm.
in life.
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
Um so I think that, grief looks like sadness, and sometimes, as you move on, with the rest of your life, you might feel a little bit better, feel like more of yourself, but there's always a piece of you that will always be missing. There will always be a piece of you that you will always yearn to want to get back, but
Mhm.
you're just never going to get that because you can never get that person back.
Yeah.
So like I always say, like a piece of me always goes into the grave once everything
Mhm.
is said and done. So
Mm.
to me, that's what grief looks like, is trying to figure out how to move forward without having to have this person in my life on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, besides like, crying and being depressed.
Falling out. Oh Lord, Lord, take me now. Lord, it's so much energy. Like, okay, so another thing is going to these funerals and stuff because my mother started me early with that. But just all the energy it takes for the grief, like at the actual service, people passing out and people falling out, and it's like, man, that take a lots of energy
For sure. And I
to.
I always try to figure out, where does this energy come from?
I
Like
don't know,
when I'm at a funeral, I'm like, I would like to be anywhere
but
but here.
here, yeah,
Like, I'm like,
let's get this. Let's hurry up. You know what
are
I'm
you
saying?
not slick having a panic attack? Like, I'm slick having a panic attack. I literally have no energy to even talk to God about taking me.
Right.
I don't even have it. Like, I'm more so like, I'm trying to figure out, is this real? Because
Mhm.
again, we're still in shock. Like,
Mhm.
it gets
Mhm.
no realer than the funeral. Open or
Agreed.
closed casket, doesn't matter.
Don't
It's
matter.
just the the visual of the casket and knowing that your loved one is in it is like,
Mhm.
whoa. It's just like, this is it. Like we're going into the final steps,
Yes, I
and it's like,
think.
how do you have? I don't get it.
I think bringing up the whole casket thing, like of your loved one being in there. There is only one time in all of my life, adult life, where I did not look in the casket because I just could not. I couldn't
Hmm.
take it, and that was with my godmother. When she passed away, it was definitely a huge shock. Unexpected. Although she was very clear that if something happened to her, we all knew who would be responsible for her death.
Hmm.
But I could not bring myself to like look at her like.
Hmm.
And my mother told me, she was like, you need to go to the viewing. You need to just like, you need to make sure you view her. And I'm like, I can't. That was the one time. Like, I don't regret it. And I think parts of me, I don't want to remember her looking like that.
Hmm.
I want to remember her in the way that I remember her. And I could not, like, I couldn't even look that way. And they didn't have the casket open the entire service. It's kind of like once you went through the wake or whatever. But I could not, I couldn't do it. And I always ask myself, why couldn't you? I just couldn't see her like that.
Hmm.
So I think about that often, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable. I mean, I think that like sometimes just seeing a person in the casket can be traumatizing. Like
Yeah.
I think that people acknowledge how traumatizing it could be for somebody to see a loved one in that like the casket does not symbolize happiness. It
Right.
symbolizes ending.
Mm-hmm.
It symbolizes death. So it's like, you know, after the funeral, I think that people who have experienced death, you have these dreams. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't want that to be the
Right.
thing that flashes in your head.
Yep.
because everybody has those dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody gonna have a dream. I know that I usually have a dream that they done came back, and I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is this is fake. Like I'm like, oh, whew. I'm like all that trauma for nothing. Like, whew, you
Right.
really played me. You tried it. Like you really had me thinking you were gone. Like, and then I wake up and I'm like, all right, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if my mind's playing tricks on me. Am I having an episode? But you just go through it. But I just feel like, I don't really do the viewing of the body either. Like it's just not my thing. I just don't.
So, do you have dreams of like family members like coming back to visit you in a dream, or like dreams of them being in the casket?
No, I have dreams. So if somebody dies to me that's close, I
Mm-hmm.
usually have a dream of them literally coming back. Like nothing happened. Like
Oh, okay.
passed, when my dad passed, I had a dream, maybe after the funeral, that he came home from work.
Okay.
And he was like, oh hey, baby girl. I was like, oh hey, thought you was dead.
Right.
He was like, what made you think that? And I'm like, I just went to your funeral. Like, what's
Right.
going on? And then I would wake up and I'm like, oh, okay. And the same
Mm-hmm.
thing happened to my sister. She was like sitting in the living room. I was like, oh, girl. Like, let me tell you, like, I just had this experience that, like, you had died. She was like, no, I didn't. Like, what are you talking about? Like, no, like, everything's all good. Everything's fine. And woke up, same thing.
I think those are visitation dreams, Bree.
Well, I don't need them visiting me, telling me lies. All right? I don't need those type of lies in my life, okay? Because I'm out here thinking like, oh, like we're back to normal. This was all a week-long dream. Because up to the funeral, everybody want to come by the house.
Right,
Like, this is
right,
just
right,
a nightmare.
right.
Okay, cool. But no, it's like, even if they are visitation dreams, I'm like, you could at least came back and told me like you love me or like this ain't over. I'm always with you or some delusional. You're gonna you're gonna make me delusional in this
Bree,
dream.
what's wrong with you? What's wrong? Now I will say, Miss Tatum, I had a couple of dreams about her,
Mm-hmm.
and they've always been she's her apologizing, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Cause she know that was messed up the way she just left up out of here. She know that.
Very true. I think we'll explain how she left so that.
Okay. So she first of all, we talked every week. She texts
Mm-hmm.
me every single day. So there was a period where I wasn't getting any text messages. I was calling her, going straight to the voicemail. That wasn't like her. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I called you and I was like, something is going on. And you
Mm-hmm.
like, oh no, she fine, child. She good. I'm like, I'm telling you, something is happening. I just felt it. I felt it. So the day that I want to say the day she passed away, that was a rough week. So that week, I had just started my new job. That was
Mm-hmm.
all a mess. Then I found out I had to have a hysterectomy that week, and then she died the next day, I think. And so I'm like, never. The last conversation I had with her was she was going to bed. We laughed and talked for a little while, and that was like in December. She passed away in March, but
Mm-hmm.
it was no conversation in there like, hey, I'm sick. Hey, I've been in the hospital. Now I knew she had illnesses or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing to the point that it was gonna make her,
Mm-hmm.
pass away or whatever.
Because from our understanding, she was getting better.
Correct. Yes, she was getting better.
Yeah.
She had finished, her chemo. She
Mm-hmm.
had, she was fine.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes
after
I would chit chat with her while she was doing chemo. I was like, "What?
right, right.
Oh,
So
this ain't no isolation. Like this ain't no radiation. Like will you be on the phone or something? Like what's going on?"
right.
Clearly, I know nothing about chemo.
No, so it was no like the next thing I know it was like, okay, it's gonna be a service. And
Mm-hmm.
knowing her because me and her had talked about, death, She didn't want nobody to view her. She didn't want nobody to look at her. She wanted to be already where she was gonna
Mhm.
be. She wanted to be in a
Mhm.
mausoleum. I do know that. So later finding out that that's exactly where she ended up,
Mhm.
and being at her service, it did not feel real. It felt like how was this even possible that um I'm here? But she definitely got the last laugh, I will say that, because she so the church she was going to two churches at the time, but her home church, she really wanted me to go back with her because of this person that at the time I used to date, whatever. And she was like, I want you to come on back so he can see how good you're doing in life. And I'm like, girl, I'm not doing that. And as soon as I walked in the funeral, he's sitting in the pulpit. And I just bust out and started laughing. And I'm like, you, Miss Tatum, you just had to have the last laugh, huh? Okay.
Mhm.
You funny. Okay. We see you. I see you. I see you.
Mhm.
You got me back on that one. But um yeah, it was no closure for her, no. But also I had to respect her decision because having an illness that you can't control, there's only certain things you can control. And
Mhm.
for her, it was the way that she left.
Yeah.
And it wasn't personal because it wasn't just me
Mhm.
that she did it to. It was several people that she was very close to that did not get to say goodbye either.
Mhm.
So I had to respect that decision. Just was what
Yeah.
it was.
It is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What?
So no, go ahead.
Um. What? You go with the next question.
Oh, what does closure mean to you? And do you think it's always necessary to find peace after a loss?
I don't. It's a simple question, but it's hard. I
Mm.
feel like we want to get closure
Uh-huh.
when it comes to death, and I guess it depends on what you look at as closure. But I don't feel like you do. Like I feel like you just pick up the pieces. Like
Mm.
you just pick up what's left behind and like make the best out of it. So to me, I don't really think that you just get closure. I feel like you just end up it's kind of like a cut and like
Mm.
a deep cut.
Mm.
And it's like you'll heal, but you'll always have the scar.
Yeah.
So you'll always be reminded of that thing, but like life goes on. Like
Mm. Mm.
I feel like every major loss that I've had, it always felt like the world was continuing to move and my world was ending. And I'm like, did y'all not know?
Right.
My
Right.
daddy just died. Did y'all
Right.
not get the word? You know what I'm saying? Everybody like, I don't like your daddy. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I just feel like closure is just sometimes I feel like it's a myth. I feel like it's something that us
Mm.
humans want to say to make ourselves feel better, but it's just like it's not it's not really a thing. I don't even really believe in like closure with the living. So
Mm.
that's just me. You had a second part to the question. What was that?
Um, do you think it's always necessary to find peace after a loss?
I do think that it's necessary to find peace
Okay.
because I think that that's the part that eats people up. I think the one thing that I
Mm-hmm.
am blessed for when it came to my losses is that the last things that I did tell those people was I love you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when God did take them home, I never felt like, man, I never got to tell them, or I don't know if they knew how much I loved them, or it was I never left the gravesite with those type of regrets. It
Yeah.
was more so of like, what do I do now? Like this
Mm-hmm.
is this is a person who was a huge part of my life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I showed them love all the time, and I'm like that now. Like I show love to the people who I love because I know that I want anybody that's in my life to know that I love and I appreciate them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that I am grateful for, and maybe that's the reason why I don't need closure. Is
Mhm.
because they haven't left on in a situation where I needed that type of closure.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was more so like, why'd you die? Like, like it was
Right.
more so like you had more to live. Like I felt like you had more life to live. I thought I had more time with you.
Right. Yeah.
Um, that's what I thought, but I don't. There wasn't a situation that happened that and it was left unsaid or something needed to be communicated.
Mhm.
That's not my experience. So, what about you?
Um, I think, is it always necessary to find peace? I mean, yeah, I think you have to go through your own process, or personally, I have to go through my own process to find that peace, right? And I think for
Mhm.
me, I try to find ways, whether I'm teaching or using, therapeutic interventions where I can honor the person that I have lost, who's played a significant role in my life. And so for me, I try to find ways to do that, right? Other
Mhm.
people may not other people may not know that, but for me, I know that. And then that makes me feel good. It makes me feel
Mhm.
like I still remember and I'm never going to forget, So I think, yes, I think I find my peace in being able to honor those individuals,
Okay.
and give her an opportunity to. Yeah.
How do you balance grief with the rest of your life?
Ooh. That's too deep. Mm-mm. How do you balance grief with the rest of your life? Mm. I mean, I almost want to say it's a part of life because life just be life. Like you really don't have a choice. You gotta go. You gotta move forward. You gotta keep going to work. Excuse me. You gotta take care of your family. Like it's not like it gets to stop. I think in those private, personal moments, you take that time you need to, be sad, but then you kind of got to keep going. I mean,
Yeah.
life is not stopping for,
Mhm.
like you said, like, don't you know, somebody just died. I need this time, but like,
Mhm.
nobody cares about that.
Yeah.
When people say sorry for your loss, I can't stand that. That bothers me. Because you ain't really sorry. I mean, what I'm saying, you didn't know, you ain't do nothing. One, two,
Mhm.
you didn't know them. Okay, I mean, I know it's a nice thing for people to say, but like, life is still happening. You ain't saying, okay, you know what? Let me tell life to slow down for you a little bit while you go through this
Mhm.
process. Um, but I mean, it just is what it is at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. I think that I was younger when my mom, but no, oh, please, Lord, when my dad and my sister passed. So
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had any major losses in adulthood where I have
Mm-hmm.
like, responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do feel like when I think that there's no real balance at the beginning,
Yeah.
but I think that it's just kind of like a rocky like boat. Like you're just like trying to get a hold of it. And it's like as much as you try to get a handle of the boat, the waves are still like
Yeah.
going and moving. Like you know what I'm saying? But instead of you like going against the current, you're going to find your groove and you're going to be like, okay, like it's going to get a little bit better. It's going to get a little bit better. And it's going to end up like being more calm. But there are going to be points where the waves come back,
Yeah.
whether you are expecting it or not. You know, that's
Mm.
how I see it moving through the rest of your life because sometimes grief can come up in so many other ways. Like,
Yeah.
it could come up in your relationship, it could come up in your friendships, dealing with grief. And sometimes it ends up changing who you are as a person. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I think that grief really shows the morality of of our lives. Like it shows like literally like no one is promised tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think that you end up changing how you view the world and how you
Mm-hmm.
view other people. So it's like for the rest of your life, you're like, hey, you know, I need for people to, you either change being like, let me be more appreciative, or, let me be more grateful, or let me express it more. You could change it in those ways, or you could
Mhm.
change it in a way where you isolate more,
Mhm.
or you
Mhm.
don't want to find love because you've lost a big love. So it's like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna end up falling in love with somebody else so then they could die too. You know,
Yeah.
it could just impact you in so many different ways and how you look at life. So I think that when you're trying to balance and, live life, I think that it could be difficult. I think one thing that I've always wondered is that, like, people who have kids, like, how do you lose, somebody and take care of the kids? Like, that's
Mhm.
one thing that, like, my sister told me. She was like, whenever you decide to go into motherhood, just know that it's everything and a kid.
Mhm.
If you get a
Mhm.
flat tire, with a kid. If
Yep.
you lose your job, with a kid.
Mm.
So just thinking about, just think about my mom, her losing my dad with three
With
kids.
3 kids. Yeah.
you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And so
Mhm.
just thinking about, like, this is the love of her life. This is her high school sweetheart.
Mhm.
How do you move forward with life when you didn't plan
For
on,
that. Yeah.
yeah, like, you didn't plan to raise three kids by yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a divorce where you're training your brain to be like, okay, well, I know that I may have financial support from him, but he's not going to physically be in the house to help me with
Right.
Y and Z.
Right. Right.
But to lose a husband and having to figure out, like, okay, so these kids that we still gotta, put a roof over our head. I still have to feed them, you know, all different types of stuff. And there's other legal things that come along when it comes to a
Mhm.
spouse dying and your kids and your property and all this
Mhm.
good stuff. So if you don't even have your affairs in order, that's another layer to figuring out what you're gonna do with your life and what the rest of your life looks like.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, do you move on to a new spouse? Or do you just remain a widow? Like, it's just so many different life choices. So,
And I think a lot of married couples don't, especially like our age, they don't have those type of conversations.
for
And I
sure.
remember after we got married, I asked the husband, I said,
Did you
so
say
if
the
something
husband?
the husband, I said, if something happens to you, like, what do you want me to do as far as the kids go?
Mhm.
Because, I don't, again, we don't know how long we about to be around, but I
Mhm.
do want to ask this question because what is your expectation? What is your expectation? And he was like, I would hope that you would still be in their lives,
Mhm.
actively. Which I don't have an issue with that, and it's like, and I think about that all the time, like something happened to him right now, they 10 and 12,
Mhm.
so that's pivotal times in their life, that they if their father, was to be gone or whatever. But I need to know. He was like, well, I don't want to talk about that. Well, it's something that we should talk about. Right. It's a
Mhm.
conversation that, because I think about losing him all the time. Like, who gonna take care of me? Who gonna
Mhm.
cook this dinner for me tonight? Who gonna wash my clothes? Who gonna put my towel in the bathroom? Like, who gonna do all of that?
You're right.
I think about that all the time, and he
Mhm.
hates talking about that stuff. But I'm like, if I die, this is what I want you to do. This, that, and the third. Okay, I'm not, and I know he ain't gonna remember none of that. But still, it's
Mhm.
still, you still should have that conversation because it's important,
Mhm.
right? And you don't, like you said, you just don't know what's gonna hit us.
Mhm.
We can be going one way in life, and then it takes us another way.
Mhm.
So just being prepared for it as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's even impacted my work.
Yeah.
I when I have my consultations as a real estate agent, I when I have a couple or married couple, I always ask them, like, hey, is this a mortgage that you all can handle on your
Individual.
own
Mhm.
individually?
Mhm. Mhm.
I said, because anything could happen. And so you don't want to end up losing your house or going into foreclosure because you can't afford that
For
monthly
that.
payment. Because
Yeah.
again, life's going to continue to move on,
Mhm.
and the mortgage company is going to feel some sympathy for you, maybe, or they are going to be like, you're going to have to figure something out.
Right,
So
right.
if it's not that, like, what other, like, do you have a life policy or something to supplement until you can figure out what to do
Yeah.
before, having to make such a big decision in whether you need to sell or if you can continue to afford the monthly payments.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some things that people also don't think about as well when it comes to the rest of their lives. Is
Mm-hmm.
that, if your spouse was to pass, he's the breadwinner or she's the breadwinner, what does that look like for you and your family for the living moving forward? So I definitely, that has impacted my life because my parents did that.
Yeah.
But when they bought their first house, it was a house that both of them could afford individually. And that's why when my
Mm-hmm.
dad passed, we were able to continue to live in that house because
Mm-hmm.
they had monthly payments that my mom could, afford
Mm-hmm.
moving forward. There was a plan set in place.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that people don't think about as well.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent point. Mm.
And then last, one more question.
Oh, you got one more question.
Yes.
Hmm.
Speaking of the topic we spoke about last week of safe spaces,
Uh-huh.
how can you create a safe space for others who are grieving?
I think sometimes just being a listening ear. One of my best friends right now is definitely grieving very, very hard, and just listening, you know, to him process that death has been helpful to him. Just kind of asking him what he needs, and sometimes he doesn't even know what he needs,
Mm-hmm.
but um, he knows that I'm available any time of the day to call, and even if it's just holding the phone, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, but encouraging, therapy, obviously. I feel like as a safe space, you should encourage actual physical therapy because it's important, right? It's just like your physical health. You go, you get a checkup, but also your mental health needs that too. And if you
Mm-hmm.
experience something as great as a loss of someone, you should be able to process those things. And so for me, definitely encouraging therapy, being there with them, whether it's in the physical, whether it's on the phone, virtually, whatever, through FaceTime. I think those things are important.
Yeah. I think that a safe space for me sometimes is just sitting in silence.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I don't want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just get deplenished of like all of your energy because you probably
Mm.
have been crying for like hours, if not
Yeah.
days at that point. And then if you like already know how this process is going to go because you've already been through it,
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you were to take that person out of that house and like go for a walk or a drive or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, to me, that's a safe space because, up into the point of the funeral, people are coming in and out,
Yeah.
bringing food, fried chicken of all the fried chicken, of
Not
the
fried.
fried chicken of the fried, you know? I
From the
mean,
Popeye?
so
From the Popeye?
listen, I didn't even know how many people had fried chicken until somebody died. We talking about Popeyes, churches, park, KFC, 1, 2, 3, you and me. It was a lot. Okay, it was a lot. But
Brianka.
okay, but I think that those are like safe spaces and like bringing like a person's favorite item.
Mm.
Like if like for food example, like that your friend or your loved one loves pizza.
Yeah.
I remember when my dad passed and no, my sister passed and like everybody brought chicken. But my our youth coordinator from church, she brought pizza and we ate it up because we were just tired of the same old thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but she was always like a safe space at that time as well. We talked to
Mm-hmm.
her and all that good stuff. And I think that, safe spaces look different when you're grieving. Like
Yeah.
I just don't feel like for me it's not a lot of talking.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of like, don't let Brianka spiral too much in here
Yeah. Yeah.
and we're good. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sometimes the safe space is giving me some space.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, just need to woosah, you
Ooh,
know,
for sure.
process
Mm-hmm.
it. And also, I wasn't able to do this during my grieving stages because I was 6 when my dad passed and I was 17 when my sister passed, my oldest sister passed. So when one of my good friends, mom passed, I brought a little bit of alcohol
Bring the liquor.
and some substances because I never got to grieve with the good stuff, you know?
Uh-huh.
It was
Mm-hmm.
always just very sober,
Mm-hmm.
very present,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
very, you know?
You know, you can always count on Brianka to bring the good time in the stressful time.
Listen,
Always count on you, baby.
because, you know, why go through it alone? No need. It's not necessary. And
Mm-hmm.
don't take life too seriously. Sometimes I feel like it's fake, anyways.
Not as fake.
Yeah, sometimes. I feel like
Uh,
some of the things that we stress and worry about, it's like if you just stop stressing, it's fake.
hmm. Okay, I kind of like that actually.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. Okay.
But yeah. Well, that wraps up episode 2. Don't forget to subscribe, YouTube, YouTube, Apple, Pandora, iHeart, all of them, and then add us on your Instagram, your TikTok, on YouTube and Facebook. We're on
Mm-hmm.
all those platforms. All of them are the same. Girl, she did that. Subscribe, add us. We would love, love, love your support.
Yes, and buy our merchandise, please. Thank you.
Yes, we have merchandise. Again, we have cups, journal, um, a sweatshirt, suitcase, shower curtain, all different types of items. Check it out. Let us know what you think. And thank you for your support.
Yes. Until next time.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.